after that gradual revelation was coming down, and the Prophet ﷺ commanded people to write parts of the Quran, then Islam started to spread within the deserts of Arabia. So the Arabs at that time, they had multitudes of different dialects. Just like today, you can look at the English or whichever language you want to look at, and you have different people in different parts of the world. They're all speaking English, but they are speaking different dialects of the same language. So that was the same case for the Arabs at the time. So when Islam spread to different tribes, Arab tribes like Tamim, etc., and then you had Quraysh, you had different tribes of the Arabs. And then when Islam spread, it was difficult for these other tribes that speak other dialects other than the dialect of Quraysh, which was the first dialect that the Quran was revealed in. It was difficult for these individuals and these people to recite the Quran in a dialect other than their own. So the Prophet ﷺ, what he did is that he started asking an angel Gabriel that we need more different ways of reciting the Quran. So basically, after that happened, and after Islam spread in all of these different tribes, there was a need for the Quran to also be easier for these people, because these people, you have the very old man, you have the very young child, and you have different people among them that cannot speak the dialect of Quraysh. It was difficult for them. So the Prophet ﷺ, he spoke with Angel Gabriel. He requested, he said, فَمَا زِلْتُ أَسْتَزِيدُهُ. I asked Angel Gabriel to ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make an easy way for us, for those individuals that are from different tribes that cannot speak the dialect of Quraysh. So what happened is that Allah Azza wa Jal revealed the Quran in 7 different dialects, which are also known as the 7 ahruf. So Allah Azza wa Jal can make it easier for the people to recite the Quran in their own dialect. If they're very old or they're a child, and it's very difficult for them to recite the Quran in a dialect other than their own. So as the hadith says, that the Prophet ﷺ, he asked Angel Gabriel, he said, فَمَا زِلْتُ أَسْتَزِيدُهُ. I kept requesting him to increase until he gave me 7 ahruf. And then Allah Azza wa Jal, he said, whichever harf, whichever dialect you would recite the Quran in, from these 7 dialects, you're correct. فَقَدْ أَصَابُ. You're correct. There is no problem. Allah Azza wa Jal also gave the command, فَقْرَأُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنْهُ. Recite whatever is easy for you. So you can recite from these different dialects, whatever is comfortable, whatever is easy for you as an individual. Because the whole reason for the Quran to be revealed in these 7 different dialects was to make it easy for the people. So then you could recite from these different dialects, whatever is easier for your tongue as an Arabic person. And here you can see a miracle that people can look at and can see that this Quran cannot be from Prophet Muhammad, because he was from the tribe of Quraysh. And as we know, even today, if you bring anyone like English or American or whatever it is, and you start telling him, start speaking to me in different dialects of English, start speaking to me in a Scottish dialect and Australian dialect, they're not going to be able to do it. They might do it for a few minutes, but then they will make mistakes. So how did the Prophet ﷺ recite the same Quran or bring revelation of the same Quran in 7 different dialects of the Arabs? We're talking about 6,000 verses here of the Quran, of the most eloquent speech to ever exist. So this by itself is a miracle for people of understanding, for people who have intellect, to see that this text could not have been coming from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ himself. So the Quran came down, and while it came down in these 7 different dialects, also Allah Azza wa Jal added more new features in these 7 ahruf that was revealed. For example, he revealed certain words different from the first revelation that he revealed. For example, these words increase the meaning or bring an additional meaning that enriches the meaning of the Quran. For example, the Quran says Maliki Yawmiddin in the first chapter, Surah Al-Fatiha. It says Maliki Yawmiddin and Maliki Yawmiddin, the owner of the Day of Judgment and the King of the Day of Judgment. These 2 meanings do not contradict one another. They enrich the meaning of the Quran further. And also these dialects had different ways of reciting the same word. So it's the same exact word with the same dialectical marks and everything, but it's just the way you pronounce it is different. Like for example, you say Wadduha and you say Wadduhi. So depending on the dialect of the Arab tribe of the time. And also Allah Azza wa Jal had certain words read in a different way to also enrich and increase the meaning. For example, when Moses, he came to Pharaoh in the Quran, and he showed him the signs like the stick and all of the signs that Moses showed Pharaoh, he said to him in one recitation, لَقَدْ عَلِمْتَ, you know that no one revealed these signs except the Lord of the heavens and the earth. So you know that no one can reveal these miracles except the Creator. So here in one recitation, Moses is telling Pharaoh, you know. And in another recitation, he says, لَقَدْ عَلِمْتُ, I know. So Moses is speaking from the first person here, that he knows that no one else can reveal these miracles except the Lord of the heavens and the earth. So here we have an enriched meaning added to this verse, that Moses himself, he knows, he believes, he's certain that these signs came from the Creator. And also, the other recitation is that Pharaoh also knows this, even though he's denying. He also knows that these signs are coming from the Creator. So that is enriching and increasing the meaning of the Quran. And now, that's why you see Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, who was actually one of the 4 people that the Prophet ﷺ recommended that people take the Quran from, or take the recitations of the Quran from. So there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, take the Quran from 4 people, i.e. these 4 people are the best reciters. So one of them is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Ubay ibn Ka'b, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, and Salim, right? These 4 people, the Prophet ﷺ said, take the Quran from them, they're the most eloquent in reciting. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, that I've seen the reciters in the beginning, I've seen these different ahruf, these different dialects of the Arab, these different revelations that came from Allah Azza wa Jal, and they're very close. They're like halum and aqbil, which both of these 2 words mean the same thing, which means come, but it's just different ways to say the same thing. And as we said, different words that are also enriching the meaning, like the king and the owner. So this was essentially the 7 ahruf. The 7 ahruf were 7 dialects that also added more unique words that enriches the meaning of the Quran, and unique ways of reciting certain words that adds and increases the meaning of the Quran. Now, the very important thing to understand here is that all of these different things are all considered Quran. So when we say there is only one Quran, there is only one Quran, because that is the same text, but it is recited in different ways. That is the same text, but these differences are all coming down from Allah. So Quran is that recitation of the text of the revelation that comes from Allah Azza wa Jal. That's what the Quran is. And all of these different ahruf, all of these 7 ahruf, all of these unique words like Malik and Malik, or alimtu an alimta, or tabayyanu an tathabbatu, all of these are coming from Allah, from Angel Gabriel. And the Prophet ﷺ recited them word for word. So when you look at different qira'at and you look at different recitations of the Quran, you look at these words, or you hear different ways of reciting certain things like wadduha, wadduhi, when you hear these things, these are all coming from the Prophet ﷺ. They're all coming from Allah Azza wa Jal. They're all revelation coming from Allah. Unlike the differences that you have in other religions and manuscripts, these differences are corruptions. So they're not coming from the source. The differences that you find in their manuscripts, they're not coming from the source. They are coming later on, added by individuals. Now, these differences that we're talking about in qira'at, they're all coming from the Prophet ﷺ. They're all coming from Allah, and they're all considered Quran. And Allah Azza wa Jal said, فَقْرَأُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنْهُ, recite that which is easy for you. So you can recite from these 7 different dialects, whatever is easy for you. From these words that are revealed, you can choose to say Malik if you want to say Malik. You can choose to say Malik if you want to say Malik. That's up to you. These are all things which are accessible because of the Prophet ﷺ, he gave you that permission. And the whole reason for them to be revealed is to make things easy for the people. So towards the end of the life of the Prophet ﷺ, because we said it was revealed in 23 years, towards the end of the life of the Prophet ﷺ, Angel Gabriel, he used to come to him every year. In Ramadan, he came to him 2 times. So at the end, when Angel Gabriel came to the Prophet ﷺ, he showed him the order of the verses of the Quran and the order of the chapters. So the order of the chapters of the Quran and the verses that we have today, that was given at the last final revelation. It was called Al-Awdatul Akhira, the last final revelation, or the last final showing. Well, Angel Gabriel came at the end of the life of the Prophet ﷺ when the Quran was fully revealed, and he told him exactly where to place each chapter, exactly where to place each verse, and also any verses of the Quran that was abrogated. Because there was previous verses of the Quran that was revealed that was abrogated and caused to be forgotten. Like Allah Azza wa Jalla says in chapter 2, verse 106, مَا نَنْسَخْ مِنْ آيَةٍ أَوْ نُنْسِهَا. There is no verse that we abrogate or cause to be forgotten. So there were certain verses that were abrogated in the beginning or caused to be forgotten. So in that last final revelation, Angel Gabriel showed the Prophet ﷺ, any verses that were abrogated to be removed, and the order of the verses of the Quran, etc., and how the Quran is to be. So that was the last final revelation of the Quran given by the Prophet ﷺ, and all of these instructions were given to the companions that this is how the Quran is, 114 chapters that we have today, and this is the order of the chapters, and this is the order of the verses. And now something to keep in mind is that this final last revelation had some verses, as we said, that were abrogated, that the Prophet ﷺ told the people that were abrogated. But if you remember before, we said some of the companions had their own masahif. So in these books that they had, their personal ones, perhaps some of them had some abrogated verses that they still did not remove, etc. So keep that in mind, because we'll come to that in the future, inshallah. So this was the first stage. This was the first stage of the revelation of the Quran. Quran coming down on a period of 23 years. The 7 ahruf, when Islam spread, so the 7 different dialects of the Arab, including some unique words that enriches and unique ways of reciting that enriches and make it easy for the people when they're reciting the Quran.